We're really excited here at Muscle Car of the Week because we finally reached our 200th episode. And to do something extra for episode number 200, we have not only a very special car from the Brothers Collection, but an extra special guest to tell us about it. This interview was shot at the Muscle Car and Corvette Nationals in Chicago, and it features a 1969 Ford Torino race car and its original driver, 3-time IndyCar champion and 13-time Pikes Peak champion, Bobby Unser. A lot of people come to the Muscle Car and Corvette Nationals to see the cars, but in reality, it's the people behind the cars that make this such a special event. And a special guest of the Muscle Car and Corvette Nationals this year is none other than 3-time Indy 500 winner, Mr. Bobby Unser himself. Bobby, it's a pleasure to have you here at the show.
Well, you don't know how much of a pleasure it is for me.
Well, and to have
I'm the one that's having the fun.
Well, I think we're all having fun, but to have you here, especially in front of a car that you campaigned, which has a very special story, and it's kind of a muscle car, but a race car that hasn't been seen in quite a while, this 69 Torino.
Well, it's been around a long time, but the most interesting thing about this car, Kevin, is the fact nothing is any different on it. Nothing has been changed. Now that's really rare for a race car.
Absolutely.
You know, that thing was Ford Motor Company. It wasn't by, I didn't build it. In other words, Ford paid the bills, got it built, and it was done when Bunky Knudsen was the president of Ford Motor Company. And Bunky and I knew each other because he had been with Pontiac some years before, and he supported me with my engines, Pontiac engines in those days, for my race car, Pikes Peak, not the stock car, but the race car, of which I won with quite a few times. And Bunky and I were good friends. And do you mind me telling the story right now, a little bit about it?
I would love to hear it. In fact, let's back up just a hair.
Okay.
And
I get going too fast on that stuff.
Well, you're kind of known for going fast. Not a problem with that. Let's back up a little bit and talk about Pikes Peak. So what's that race all about? And that's kind of your deal.
Well, that's what the car was only made for, period. The car wasn't capable of running anyplace else. It could have been changed and gone to the short tracks or Daytona or whatever, but it was made for Pikes Peak. And Pikes Peak, especially in those days with the stock cars, which if you look at it, the lines, everything is totally stock. It's a Torino, and it's exactly like a Torino that you bought at the dealership would be, but not on the other stuff inside. Stuff. It's a Smokey Unique engine. I mean, there's not very many guys that Smokey would build an engine for.
No.
And I wanted Smokey to build it, all because Bunky Knudsen wanted the record for Ford Motor Company. And it was really cute. When we talked, it was down at the Goodyear Tower at Daytona. It had nothing to do with the Daytona race, except that's where everybody goes. During, I think it was February, whatever it is. And we're just sitting there talking, or standing there talking. And he said, why haven't you done a record for us at Pikes Peak with Ford? And I always thought that Ford and Mercury are basically the same company. That's what most people always thought, I think, you know? And I told Bunky, I said, gosh, you already hold the record with Parnelli Jones in a Mercury. I know, because I helped Parnelli learn the road, and we were the closest of friends. And so we practiced together every day. And so Bunky says, Bobby, that's Mercury. He says, I'm Ford. He says, not the same. And I says, well, boss, if you want to get a Ford, we'll build one. And we'll get you a record for you.
It's obvious that Unser has a lot of stories to tell about a lifelong career in racing. And we're also just as interested to learn some of the facts about the car itself. The car is a 1969 Ford Torino Talladega-bodied stock car, and it was built specifically for the run at Pikes Peak on June 29th of 1969. The car was built by the team of Holman and Moody and Bill Strop Racing, and compared to a stock 69 Torino Cobra, it's obvious to see the race car is lower and leaner than the street version, with subtle aero mods all over the car. The lights, mirrors, trim, and other non-necessities were removed, and the bumpers were tucked in for a sleeker profile. The headlights were removed in favor of cold air intakes to cool the various fluid coolers on board, and a complete roll cage was installed for stiffness and safety. Tow hooks and hood pins appear in the front, but the grille retains a mostly stock appearance. A small wing was added to the rear deck for stability, and the glass was replaced with plexi and retained with straps and tabs. Two small quarter vents relieve air pressure, and the rear bumper features a smooth panel where the license plate recess once was. The rocker panels are recessed to accommodate the side exhaust. You'll notice that this isn't a perfectly restored show car because it's mostly original and it's still covered in stone chips from climbing the big hill. The chassis is primarily a stock design that has been beefed up for racing with a lowered front suspension, high-rate springs, outboard-mounted racing shock absorbers, a larger sway bar, and reinforced strut rods. Adjusters in the struts allow for alignment tuning, and reinforcements were welded into the lower control arms. Skid plates protect the engine, and certain part numbers contain X's. These are experimental racing pieces, but they still carry Ford part numbers. The racing headers merge into flat collectors for ground clearance, and the wheels are oversized steel pieces with wide rubber up front and Unser spec'd tread and compound in the back. The rear suspension exhibits some classic hot rodding tricks, including moving the stiffer rear leaf springs inboard to accommodate the larger tires. A steel strap strengthens the 9-inch rear axle housing, and a narrowed steel fuel cell feeds the beast. An arched tubular crossmember not only reinforces the chassis, but also provides a raised upper mount for the long travel rear racing shocks. A pair of filtered rear axle breathers sit between the tubes. So overall, the chassis design and execution are pretty basic, but they were obviously very effective because this car did set a record at Pikes Peak. When he climbed in the car, Unser was greeted with an array of switches and gauges. The switches control ignition, pumps, and cooling fans, and the gauges read out RPM, pressures, and temperatures. And note the backup set of gauges in case the ride is rougher than expected and the primaries get knocked out. A handwritten cheat sheet is taped to the inside headliner, but we have no evidence if it's authentic or not. The car has an automatic transmission, and we think the base of the shifter is a Pontiac piece, but we didn't confirm that. Power comes from a Boss 429 V8 that was hand-built by the legendary Smokey Yunick himself. Rumor has it that outside of some regular maintenance, Smokey was probably the last person to do any major work on this engine, and it still runs strong today. Power numbers aren't readily known, but judging by the fact that it set a record at Pikes Peak, we know this Boss 9 has what it takes. Who else was part of the winning team that put this car together?
Well, the most important, there's two guys that were the most important. That was Bill Strop that built the car, and Smokey Yunick that built the engine. Now there's the magic man of all engine guys in the world. I mean, Smokey was the king of innovation, new stuff, perfect stuff, and he was in the same building when Monkey and I made the deal to build the car, and I said I got to have Smokey build the engine. And of course, I already knew that they were close friends. They owned a helicopter together even.
Yeah.
So he called Smokey over and he says, Bobby's going to run Pikes Peak for us. And he says, he wants you to build the engine. He says, that okay with you? And Smokey in his slow, drawly way says, of course it is, you know. We were good friends, you know. And plus, that's the best.
Yes.
And I wanted for Bunky Knudsen, for Ford Motor Company, I had to have the very best. That's what I want. I spent a lot of money on this car.
I'll bet.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and then the short version is you guys pulled it together and ran the car, and how did it do?
Oh, we set a new record for sure. They got them everything they wanted. And it was pretty easy to do because the car was just, you know, Bill's the best chassis. I did the designing. That was all my deal because I know Pikes Peak. I've won it 13 times. So I kind of figured that place out a little bit. And doing a stock car instead of a race car didn't really make any difference. It all worked, you know.
Well, it's awesome that you have it here today. We're going to talk more about it, but the story is fantastic. And again, we appreciate you coming out.
My pleasure. Good to see the car. Good to see all the people.
We're very fortunate to have the time with Mr. Unser to learn about the stories of this awesome car, but there's more where that came from. In fact, after our sit-down interview, we were able to do a 1-hour stage presentation in which Unser got far deeper into the stories of his lifelong career in racing and even answered some questions from the crowd. And you can go to the MuscleCarOfTheWeek.com website and listen to the entire hour-long audio podcast from that special event at the Muscle Car and Corvette Nationals. So from all of us at Muscle Car of the Week, we really appreciate you watching our show every week. We hope you've enjoyed this special 200th episode, and we want you to know that we have a lot more to come. You can subscribe to our channel on YouTube and follow our Facebook page so you'll always be updated on when we have another episode of Muscle Car of the Week. And we'd also like to thank the Brothers Collection for letting us play with their very cool cars. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.